Hey, Cross Church families, my name is Daniel Layett. I'm the student pastor at Cross Church Pinnacle Hills. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining us in our devotional today. Hey, we're going to continue the series from John chapter 15, 1 through 3 that our senior pastor, Dr. Nick Floyd, presented to us on this past Sunday. And the big idea for today's Devo is this, is that followers of Jesus or branches that bear fruit can expect pruning in their life, which leads to a greater good. The idea of pruning is that in the moment, pruning is not necessarily something that's a pleasant experience, but in the end, it leads to something greater. It leads to even more fruitfulness. Or in other words, the idea that there is more good can happen if there's a moment of pruning that happens that leads to a greater growth. And the idea for us today and the application for all of us today is that God does some things in our own life. If we are true, if we're connected to the vine and we are bearing fruit, then basically God gives us, I call them opportunities for growth. Because there might be ways that we're trying to trust other things rather than God. And that might be a chance for Him to prune some things in our life and to cause us to refocus our lives onto more sufficiency and more dependency onto God. Because only through being dependent on God is there spiritual fruit that happens in our lives. Just like we talked about this past Monday, spiritual fruit is not something that I manufacture or that you manufacture, but what happens is that spiritual fruit is the evidence of you having a personal relationship with God and God working in and through you so that you're able to make a difference to the people around you. So you're able to love your neighbor and to demonstrate that love for neighbor because you have a love for God. So this pruning process is not pleasant, it is difficult, but I think all of us as a nation, as a country, as a world, we are kind of experiencing a global pruning, I would say. Think about all the things that have been disrupted in your life. School, sports, maybe your job, maybe there's work. I mean, a lot of us were trying to figure out what does the future look like in terms of economically. We don't know for certain, but we do trust that God is good and that God is going to provide for us in the midst of all this. But think about the pruning that is happening to the church, the capital C church. A lot of things are happening in our world today, and I think a lot of it is because of there's this idea that God is pruning some things in our own lives, and even individually, students and families, there are things that are happening that God is pruning from your life, so that you're able to have more fruitfulness as a result. It's never easy and almost always is painful, but it leads to a greater good. I'm reminded of Romans chapter 8, verse 20, which says that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. I love that verse because for those of us who trust in Jesus, God has a plan. God has a plan in the midst of all of this, all the confusion and all the uncertainty. But for us, we have to realize that whenever there's moments in our life that seem difficult, those opportunities might be chances for you to be pruned spiritually, for you to be shapen and basically redeemed and readjusted so that your focus is back on the Lord so that greater good can be a part of that. So students, don't feel bad or don't feel that God is necessarily judging you if you're going through a season of difficulty. We're all experiencing this. I mean, we're all experiencing difficulty and uncertainty together. That's not necessarily God's judgment. Sometimes He does these things and allows these things to happen so that there's greater good as a result of it. So students, let's trust that today. Let's trust that God has a plan, that God is pruning some stuff in us individually and even as a world so that more and more people can really be dependent on Him rather than being dependent on themselves. Love you guys. Thank you so much. If you need anything, please continue to visit our website at crosschurch.com/health. That's the best place for you to stay updated on where we're at as a church and the resources that we have for you guys. Take care. Be safe. God bless.